Learn how to knit this easy turban headband on any flatbed, bulky, or mid-gauge machine. The secret lies in how to create the decorative folds on the edges. While the headband appears seamless, both inside and out, watch all the way to the end to see how I've hidden the joining seam and how to make the twisted knot right on the machine. The demonstration is done on the Brothers Bulky 230, however it works up well on the LK 150 also. The companion pattern includes details for knitting on both the Bulky and the LK, so look in the description below for the link and more detail. We have a lot to cover, so let's start. Okay, so I have every other needle cast on with my scrap. So now I'm switching to my main yarn. I'm not going to leave a long end. Tension 7 is my main tension, but for this row I want it to be 2 full tensions numbers smaller. So I'm on 5 for just this row. Okay, and now I'm going to knit across. I'm in knit. I'm on tension 5. My row counter is 0. So this is my first pass, and that is row 1. So now what we're going to do is we're going to bring all of our needles out, including that number 44 down here. So they're all coming out to hold position. And I'm going to drop my garter plate right here because I'm doing a special little extra decorative cast on, and that's what makes this one fun. So I'm unthreading my carriage and pulling down a little extra slack, and I'm going to start latching. And we're going to do this a couple of different times, but how I do it is I put my hook up between my first and my second needle, and then I pick up that yarn and I pull it down and create a loop. Come up between the second and third needle, catch the loop and pull it down. Now I've loosened my tension. I pulled the yarn out a little bit so that this is a nice loose cast on. And I'm doing it on every needle, so I now have 88 needles in work. And I'll meet you when I get to the other side. When we get to the end, we're going to come up between the first and the second needle and then bring this yarn, the loop on the latch tool, around and onto the last needle. I'm going to pull it up slightly. I don't want to get too tight. Okay, so I just finished that. I'm then going to bring my yarn between the first and the second needle and over to the side, out of the way. Okay, now I'm going to take my cast-on comb and I'm just going to push it back because I need my knitting to be off to that side. A couple more things we're going to do. We're going to take off our stopper plates, our needle stoppers, and I'm going to return to my carriage on this side. Now, in this case, I'm going to flip my lever so it's in hold position. So if you're using a different machine, you need to check your manual. And I'm going to take a free pass because my yarn is on my right and my carriage is on my left. So pick my free pass. When I pick up my yarn, I'm going to thread it into the machine and I'm going to increase my tension to tension 7. Now what I've just done is put a crochet cast on or a latch tool cast on behind my original row, and we'll use that original row later. Okay, so now we're on row counter 2, even though we only have one row knit, but we are going to knit until the row counter is 25. I'll see you then. Okay, our row counter is 25 and our carriage is on our left. So now we're going to do the same thing we did before. We're going to pull out all our stitches out to hold position and drop our stopper plate in place. because now we're putting the decorative edge on the other side. At this point, I will recommend putting weights across this entire bed. And I'm going to be taking off my cast-on comb because it gets in the way when I'm trying to do a latch tool cast-on. And I'm going to latch tool, once again, just like I did before, behind the knitting and in front of the stopper plate or the gate pegs, however you want to think about it. And I'm going to do the exact same thing all the way across. Will I make it across? Oh no! I'm going to be short a few stitches. Not a problem. This is good to learn. I'm going to be close. Okay, that's close enough to stop. I'm going to take my yarn here and I'm just going to hold these two ends together. I'm going to pull down some slack so it's not so tight. Get over to here, and I'm just going to pick up with this one here. And just continue on. I thought it was going to be that difficult, huh? This will be hidden anyway. So it will disappear. Now I'm pulling on my last one, pulling it around, and putting it on the end hook. Right like that. Okay. There we go. Now, I can push these back, just like before. Now, I'm going to bring these to the front because I'm just going to take a free pass. I just don't want them getting in the way. Now, I'm ready to take a free pass from left to right. Nothing should fit, and it didn't. Okay. Now we're going to knit, so I'm going to thread up. And I'm going to take my yarn tails now, once I got it out of the way, and I'm just going to weave it over and under in one direction, and then I'm going to go over and under in the opposite direction for about 5 or 6 needles. Put a clippy on it. That also might pop off because there will be a little bit of slack taken up. Sometimes they hang on, sometimes they pop off. Now, I'm on tension 7, but I'm going to crank it up to 9. And so I'm going to take one pass over to the left. Now these ends are completely knitted in, so I can just clip those little tails off now. So I'm going to take my stoppers once again, pull all my needles, and work out to hold. Put the stopper in place, pull all these needles out to hold. Did I catch that one? I think I did. Let me pull that up. Look there. Boop. Because, once again, I'm going to be working behind it. Because I'm going to unthread, pull down some slack, get my latch tool, and repeat the process. Putting the hook up between, the latch tool up between the first and second needle, pick up that loop, and then latch across. Just like before. And take our stoppers off. And once again, my carriage is in hold. If you change it for some reason, and we're going to bring one free pass over to the right. So now our row counter is 28, and we're threaded up here. We're still on tension 9. I like to do this one at this tension one more time. We're going to knit one row to the left. And now we're going to switch back to our normal 7, and we're going to knit until my row counter is 50. And here we are, row 50, and I'm out of yarn again. How fun is that? Now we are going to bring all of our needles out to hold, because this time we're going to turn our work. So The easiest way to do that is with your garter bar. If you do not have a garter bar, then just scrap off and turn your work. Okay, so I'm going to push this back. This should open all the latches all at the same time. Then I'm going to flip it over, put it on my needle hooks, and I'm going to hold it. Now, there's a little secret to doing this. When you're doing it across the whole bed, I find it better to not try and pull it all the way onto your garter bar at first, but just pull it so that you've now closed all the latches. Now, here's the second tip when you're doing this. When you pull your stitches, and we're going to pull all of them on to the garter bar, if you have to reposition your hand, some of them may slide back down. So what I do is I tip it downward. Then I reposition my hand, tip it back up so that they slide easily off, go as far as I can, tip it down. They won't slide back then. Tip it back up, pull some more, tip it back down. I have to reposition my hand. Pull it up, tip it down, pull them up, and there we have all of our needles onto our garter bar. Now this is a Chris Crafter garter bar, and I have a series on how to do this, but what you do is you just lift it off. Now all my hooks are open, so I'm going to take my time and turn my work around. As I said, we're having fun. Out of the way. Now the Chris Crafter does have a slot, and so what you want to do, and I need to move that off a little bit further, you want to find the slot right below the stitch and start aligning it from the right to the left. Okay, and you'll align them all like so, and you push your garter bar on. That one looks pretty good now. Now I'm looking down this whole thing to make sure I am clear, and I think I am. The only test, and then it's too late, is when you drop your garter bar down, it'll get hung up. Did I hang up? I hung up on that third one. Okay. No, the fourth one. I didn't even see that one. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift this up and release that stitch. Without doing that, it will not come off. So I'll go back down here. Good thing the fix is real easy. Just latch it up. Because I've already turned the work and it's on this side now. It's facing me. Bring that up and slip back on this needle. But this time we're going to push the knitting back stopper plate. That's why I didn't remove the stoppers. Okay, and we are going to come up here and do a latch tool cast on in front, very loosely in front of our knitting. I'm on the last one, so I'm going to bring that loop around, put it there, and bring this under. I don't have to re-thread because I have one more step to do. Now let's return to our cast-on row. You see these loops right here? I'm going to pick those up and I'm going to hang them on every other needle. Now, if you use a 3-prong, you can pick one up on the first eyelet and one on the last eyelet, and then hang them. Now that we have hung the hem, there's a lot on the needles, so we will need to manually knit the last row, and I use an unorthodox method with clothespins. Clip the end with the loop about 2 inches away from the knitting. The latches are all open because we pushed the knitting back. Lay the yarn into the hooks from end to end. Clip the opposite end just above the floor. The clothespins keep tension on the yarn. Now, push the needles back as far as necessary to close the latches around the yarn, but not yet through the stitches. Do this across the entire bed before beginning the next step. Remove the clip by the loop. On the other end, pull the yarn to take up any existing slack. Starting at the end away from the yarn, begin to manually knit the row. As the row is knit, the other clip will ride up. Just move it back down near the floor. Repeat this as needed until all the stitches have been knit. And so now, I can just bring these all out. And starting at the end opposite the yarn, use your latch tool to take off the stitches one at a time. Pull the second through the first to complete the latch tool bind off. Continue all the way to the end. And there's my last one. Now, immediately pull this through and trim this. You want to leave about 12 to 15 inches at the end. The headband is now off the machine and is inside out. Reach in one of the sides and turn it right side out. Hold the folded edges of the headband and stretch the stitches lengthwise. You can remove the waist knitting at this time. If desired, you can close the eyelets on the seam side by slowly pulling the yarn tail from the cast-on row. Slowly is the key word here. If you pull too much or too fast, the stitches will be too tight, and it is really difficult to loosen them. And how do I know that? If not obvious, mark the outside of the headband. Pull out needles to accommodate half the width of the headband, in this case 7 needles. With the outside of the headband facing you, start with the edge with the yarn tails. Hang a little less than half the left side of the edge. You want to pick up the half stitch of both thicknesses at the edge. If needed, work one thickness at a time. As you progress, you will find yourself picking up both thicknesses. If you have one, use the needle stopper from the garter bar set to stabilize the needles. Now go to the other end, and with the outside of the headband facing you, hang the right half of the edge on these same needles. Make sure the headband is not twisted. Return to the first edge and fold the right half across the needles to the left. Hang the edge stitches of this half. The stitch at the fold is always a little troublemaker, so be careful. Also, make sure the yarn ends are exposed as we will need them later. Now, return to the second edge and fold the left half across the needles to the right. Hang the edge stitches of this half same as before. Now you have 8 thicknesses on the needles. Push all the hung stitches behind the latches. Then take the yarn tail and lay it in the hooks of the needles. You can use both tails if you want and if they are available, like on this headband. Make sure the latches are closed over the yarn tails and manually knit off the stitches like we did before, starting at the end opposite the yarn tails. Then use a latch tool to bind off once again, starting on the side opposite the yarn tails. When done, simply weave in the ends. You now have the perfect turban knot facing the outside of the headband. Our headband is complete. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoy learning how to make the turban knot headband. Please take a moment to subscribe and ring the bell to receive notifications of upcoming videos and events. Happy machine knitting!